Okay, today we're talking about philosophy on the internet and how I think it's turned kind of gay and non-philosophical. I've always had a not a problem, but I've always had a observation that studying philosophy is inherently somewhat non-philosophical. And this is coming from someone who's studied a lot of philosophy. And when I see people who dress in a certain way, like a certain aesthetic, it's a full stereotype I've noticed. They dress super, I don't know how to describe it, but super like not old fashioned, but old fashioned in a sense. They dress a certain way. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And then they make real appeals to authority. They'll say things like Aristotle said this, or they'll quote authority figures and be like, yes, when Socrates said this, I think this applies so well to today. And they base their entire personality, their entire ego, around a specific philosophical idea, which I'm not inherently against. But what I find gay, and it's just homosexual in general, is their entire worldview, their entire perspective of reality is based on the ideas of another man. Is based on, the thoughts of what another guy had. And I'm not the type of guy to just hate on like that kind of shit and call it all gay. But when it's why am I turning retarded? When it's philosophy, it is kind of gay. Because philosophy is about standing out. It's about having your own ideas, holding them true in your heart, and not listening to what other people think. Not in the sense that I ignore other ideas, but in the sense that I'm not gonna confide to the sheep mindset. I'm not gonna listen to what everyone else believes just because that's what they believe. It's about having your own opinions, your own reasoning, your own structure of how you relate to existence and how you come to experience the world. It's about having your own ideas. It's about knowing yourself, being yourself, expressing yourself. But when you do this through the lens of another guy, what he thought, and then constantly appealing to them as an authority to appear more intelligent, it's just gay. And is really common on the internet today. And a lot of it is just regurgitating other people's ideas, and a lot of them get really depressive and really nihilistic. And I also think nihilism is inherently pretty gay. Nihilism is like an overthinker. That's all they are. They just overthink. And if you just think all the time, then you're just thinking a whole lot of thoughts, bro. You're not really living life. You're not really experiencing the world. You're just experiencing thoughts. And of course, when you're experiencing thoughts all the time, you're going to be inherently limited because you're limited to thoughts. You're not expressing the boundless reality before you. It's the same thing with spirituality also. Although what most people would think they're very different, I think spirituality and philosophy are very intertwined. It's just two routes of the same underlying seeking. It's a seeking to know, to experience, and to understand. And it's just two different routes. One is very reasonable, very logical, very mind centered. And then the other is more through experience. It's about philosophy is about coming to conclusions through reason, through logical reality. which is very limited, but it is what it is. It does have its place. And then spirituality is about coming to experience reality, coming to know who you are through an inner knowing. And it is illogical. It's very illogical. But that doesn't mean doesn't have its place. Doesn't mean it's not reasonable. The way I like to put it is, can you logisticize the foundation of reality? Can you give me a logical argument on why reality exists? Most people, if they're being true, they'll accept that, okay, existence is somewhat illogical. Like, more logically speaking, nothing should exist. But, clearly, existence exists, which is inherently illogical. And if the very foundation of reality is illogical, then the only logical conclusion is that you cannot use logic to explain existential matters. So anything existential, anything based on the study of reality, you cannot use logic for. Logic has its place in the world. It's very helpful for external matters. But when you go within, that's where you need spirituality. That's where that has its place, in understanding the existential nature of reality. And they've done the same thing there. Spirituality has a really gay connotation in people's mind. The second you hear spirituality, it kind of triggers you. Well, I know it triggered me in the beginning, because it's just, a bunch of hippies with long hair talking about love, with, weird mandalas behind their head, with weird gypsy pants, and it becomes a whole ego in and of itself. But it's not the core message. In the same sense that philosophy, its core message is about being yourself, knowing yourself, having your own opinions, setting your own worldview, and then it's being kind of masqueraded, as being kind of hijacked by homosexuals. Spirituality is the same thing. Spirituality is simply about understanding, about seeking knowledge, seeking to know things, to know reality, to know who you are, know yourself, and your place in reality, and your relationship to it. But both have been kind of hijacked. So that when you hear the term, and you're not versed in the subject, you kind of get this idea. Like, when non-philosophical people think about philosophy, they just think about these kind of nerds who just ask weird questions, but inherently at its core, it's a very useful thing. It's very interesting, but it's just been hijacked on the face of it. And spirituality is the same. Spirituality is about coming to know who you are, overcoming the bounds of ego, and just really being free, and really expressing yourself and who you are as your expression of the divine, of God. And the same thing. People take the concept, but because they're not actually ready to do the inner work, they just grow a new personality. They dissolve the old ego of being this kind of way, and they just take on a new one. I am a spiritual person. Gay. I am a philosophical person. Gay. Just be who you are. Let go of Socrates. Let go of Aristotle. To be honest, I've never actually looked into Aristotle, just because I've been triggered by people who quote him all the time and appeal to him as an authority. So it inherently just made me want to avoid him. But I love Socrates. I love Plato. I love a lot of the Greek philosophers. Heraclitus. I fuck with some of the Germans. I like Friedrich Nietzsche. I don't fuck with Schopenhauer. He's too negative. Too hates women too much as well. Just makes me think he got no bitches, which is probably true. He looks kind of chopped. But then spirituality has the same problem. I don't believe there's anything spiritual about celibacy, I don't think there's anything spiritual about going to the mountains and sitting silently for years. It's easy to say you've overcome lust and desire when you're living in the mountains and there's no bad bitches around. How can you say you've overcome lust when you don't have big titty Latinas to distract you? It's very easy to be spiritual when you make it your whole personality. The most spiritual thing you can do is not be spiritual at all. To be spiritual makes you inherently non-spiritual. Same is the same ideal, right? Philosophy, spirituality, it's the same thing. By identifying as philosophical, by constantly appealing to philosophy, reading philosophical books, all of this shit, you're inherently somewhat non-philosophical. Not that you can't do these things, but by identifying with them, by making them who you are, you're non-philosophical. Spirituality, same thing. You can do the spiritual things. In fact, I recommend it. I highly recommend meditation. But to identify with that as this is who I am, gay and non-spiritual. But anyways, that was my yap. Let me know what you thought in the comments.